Welcome back to another edition of Doggin It. I am Molina Mike here, and I don't know who I'm more excited to have on the show, whether it's this guy to my left or if it's this guy right below me and Joey Ryan. No offense, Pinozo, but
It's all
we
right.
got a packed house, and I'm very excited because we got a lot of things to talk about. We've been trying to schedule Alex on for the past week or so, and we're finally able to go and tie him down, and we're ready to talk some Mosconi Cup. So, Alex, how are you, buddy? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, nice to be here. All good. Been busy, but we made it. We're here, so I'm ready to ask all the questions that you might have.
I
You're in
tell you,
Germany, right?
At the moment, I'm in near Munich. Yes.
Yeah. What's going on in Germany?
Well, I did a little bit of work, and then now I'm just having some leisure time with my girlfriend, so that's good.
Oh, good. Good.
nice. Well, we didn't mean to interrupt that, but we appreciate we we appreciate the time, nevertheless. Um, there's been a few players that have reached out, really anxious to see this interview, Alex. I've gotten a lot of messages privately saying, "I thought you were having Alex on last week or tomorrow or whenever." So there's a lot of people looking forward to it. Joey Ryan, welcome back, buddy. It's been a little bit.
Yeah, I heard Alex was going to be here. I said I got to be here for this. And one of the things that I'm really curious about, Alex, when we're talking about coaching teams, I think most of us have probably coached some form of team in our life, usually soccer or football or baseball, whatever it is. It's kind of different with the Mosconi Cup, right? Because it's almost like coaching an all-star team. You don't have the whole team with you all year to prepare. I'm just curious, how is it different for you? How do you go about preparing for a Mosconi Cup when it's kind of like you're taking this all-star team that's been out playing in separate events all year and kind of try to bring them together? What are some of your strategies?
Uh, well, like you put it, it's pretty limited in that normally, regularly, like the rest of the year, they play against each other. They're not playing in a team format, and they're limited time wise. They all have their schedule. So basically, the approach is do as much as we can in the time that we have, as much as we can. So that was actually like the advantage of that COVID year, 2020 was a weird year, and everything we did was online. But they were very available. A little less so now, but still, we'll find ways. We'll find ways to work together, and I can't wait to start going. So I've been doing a little bit of work with some players here and there, and Josh Filler is coming to me coming Thursday and Friday. So it's starting, yeah. But once I have all the five players, then we can really kick it off.
Once you do get that limited time with them, what's the most important facet of your approach to dealing with them? Is it strategy? Is it assessing their games? Is it getting them to think as a team? What's number one?
Well, that last part, getting them to think as a team, and of course, everyone talks to talk in whatever sport it might be, whatever event it might be. Once people are on a team sheet together, everyone will talk to talk, but it's about actually acting accordingly. And that takes time, and it might not always work. It has worked for us the last couple of years. Last year in London, we got going late, I feel. But so key focus, well, there's going to be focus in one-on-one work with players on certain elements in their game. But as a team and team communication, it's all about just being outspoken, transparent, sharing, and talking things through, so that at the time when something might occur, it's going to be something that has already been spoken about. But then
How
again, when you're in the heat of the moment, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
how tough is it to go and coach some of these guys with big personalities and a lot of hardware like the Joshes and Jasons of the world? Like how open are they to get that feedback and to really go and apply it?
Well, one on one, it's. I don't feel it's difficult. one-on-one. They're all very coachable and open to input and asking the right questions themselves. So that's all good. But of course, in a team environment with the big personalities, that's always challenging. But that's exactly the beauty of the whole event and being involved as a trainer coach, that you get to witness or be a part of that process up close and personal. Like, you know, things happen. Just even if it weren't for the high pressure pool that's to be played, just being stuck together with people, be it your brother, your parent. If you go on a holiday with friends for a week and you're staying in the same apartment, there's going to be friction, and that's without the high pressure pool. So imagine if you add that to it and all the fans and all the rapapapam leading up to it. So that's very interesting.
How do you
But you have to be aware. So I think as when you're coaching, you're always picking up on little remarks, going back and forth, or a little bit of silence. When there could have been a response. You know, it's just like a schoolyard.
Well,
how
you
do
want to
you
be able
how
to
do you
trust your guy,
diffuse?
right? Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was saying, how do you diffuse friction?
How do you diffuse friction?
Go out back.
You're not a school teacher, so you're not going to interrupt the whole time. But
Right.
but it has happened that I would be aware, or together with Carl, we would be aware of some tension building between players, and it made me feel like, if I use the metaphor of the schoolyard, it made me feel like skip rope, where you're waiting to jump in. Like you're waiting, you're waiting, you're waiting, and at some point, because it's leading to a certain escalation at some point, so you got to like interfere, but you got to pick the right time and not be premature, and also make use of those situations. Always use a good crisis.
So if you ask 100 pool fans today about the Mosconi Cup and who's going to win, 100 of them are probably going to say Europe, and that's even hardcore U.S. fans like myself. So we have a David and Goliath situation here. Do you relish being the Goliath in this, or do you feel extra pressure from it?
Well, if your favorite, you can only lose. But I stay away from it. You know, talking or thinking about that context. I just think about our best possible preparation.
Do those old cliches, like one quarter at a time, one half at a time, like they use in baseball or basketball or whatever, do those go and hold true? Like you try to keep them very much in the moment when they're out there playing or when they're
Well, yeah,
getting ready to go out there?
it's many cliches out there, and they're cliches for a reason, because that's what it boils down to.
But it
You
works.
know, but then keeping a clear head when things heat up. That's you can't practice that. So you try and prepare for certain things to happen, scenarios, scripts, and all that. But when it happens, it's sort of alchemy. You act and you do things, but in the moment, only in the moment, it'll prove to be the right choice or not.
Well, let's talk about some heat and the guy who's the hottest player coming out of Team Europe, and he had a monster year a few years back. And Josh Filler, he's your first player announced on the just from the points from the money list alone. Break down Josh for us, and what are your thoughts and expectations for him come this December at Bally's?
Well, that's going to be another list of cliches. Uh, it's never a surprise if he's on the list, but what I've seen, like the last couple of years, that he has been maturing as a player. His game has been changing, his approach has been changing, and he's still one of the most natural and gifted cueists on the globe. He's the European response to Earl Strickland, uh, like Strickland was in the 90s. Um, but he has changed a lot, and he's only 23, I think. And it's amazing to to think about that, how much he has changed, how he looked, how he made professional pool look when he was 18, the style with which he was able to win major tournaments. And then, well, he didn't hit a slump, but he slowed down somewhat, like 2 3 years. And now he has rebuilt his game, restructured his game. He looks a different player. He's almost starting to remind me a little bit of the clinical approach of Ralph Souquet, somewhat.
What do
But
you mean by that, Alex?
and now he has found his winning ways. He's won 2 matchroom events. Well, he's just methodical, clinical, and very much an all-round player. And he still plays probably like 8 or 10 seconds quicker on average per shot than Ralph Souquet in his heyday, but just all-round, clinical, and very stable. Like the what was interesting of Filler 4 years ago, that he was such a prodigy, and he was so wild. Was first time he played Mosconi Cup, he was asking for shot for more fire. Yeah, he liked the heat so much, and now he has calmed down.
Do
And
you
he's
credit that to
23.
his?
He's only 23. It's amazing. Him and Gors, it's amazing how young they are, and how many sides of their pool playing personality they've already shown us.
Yeah.
Do you accredit that to Josh's maturity? Because now he still has that incredible upside and ability to go and make a tough shot, but his decision making seems to have evolved over the last few years.
Um, yeah. So, and what's your question?
Like, do you credit everything you just said to Josh's maturity? Even at 23.
Yeah, and being coachable. Well, a lot of it, I think, is just the pool culture in Germany. That as talented, as raw a talent as he has learned at a young age in the pool verein, in the pool club, and in the federation and the provincial federation, then the national. He has just learned to work with the coach. He's coachable.
Yeah.
I think there are many very talented players, few as talented as Josh Filler, but it's just a combination of that raw talent and the structure behind it. And of course, that he got together with Pia at a young age. That many things, many good things happening for him, and they will all contribute to his career.
Yeah.
And his growth as a sports personality, I must say.
Yeah. Yeah. She's really helped stable, add a stability factor to him. Keeping him grounded, keeping him straight ahead, looking, watching out for him, doing all the preparation for him, taking a lot of stuff off his plate. That's got to be really reassuring to a kid like that.
Yeah, definitely. But I think, for example, same for Jason Shaw when he went to the States.
Mm-hmm.
He met Aaron, that helped him a lot. Before that, he was sharing an apartment with Earl, which is inspiring in some way, but it wouldn't be the most stabilizing factor for life.
Yeah,
I would think.
Yeah.
And just like in professional soccer, if a club buys a young Brazilian talent, 20-year-old, the soccer club will always try and hook him up with a girlfriend, settle him down.
Well, when you're young and you got a lot of success, having one less thing to be distracted on can be a good thing. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Joey?
Well, I didn't know soccer clubs did that, but that's kind of interesting.
I'd have played soccer when I was younger if I didn't know that.
I know. I would have stuck with it. Alex, do you think that Josh, out of all the players that are out there right now, do you think that he has the best chance of maybe being the best ever?
Well, that's a big discussion. The best ever. Yeah, nice. It's a nice discussion. Well, Fedor Gorst and Josh Filler are definitely in the mix.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many people in the game have spoken about it. But well, Josh, talent-wise, has it's difficult to level his talent, but it's ball striking ability. is maybe the least important of all elements, that go with it. But he has a big billiard brain. He wants to learn. He's like a sponge. He's not just a ball striking, ball pocketing phantom. He's an all round player.
What
And
would you?
and 9 ball, 10 ball. If we take one pocket for a little moment, he dedicated some time to it when during COVID he was staying in Roy's basement. Um, and everyone that watched that stream from day to day, you could see him evolve and develop. I mean, he has as big a billiard brain as Fedor Gorst has. They're just all-time greats in the making.
Yeah.
What would you say is maybe a weakness of his? Are there any weaknesses?
Well, I think everyone's strength is a weakness at other times. So his passion and his fire at times can be a weakness. Not now because he's in form, but when he's out of form, then you'll see with any player their strengths turn into weaknesses and maybe lack of patience. But it's difficult to call that now because he's still young, he's evolving, and he's in good form.
Yeah.
Well, we got a lot of you.
In general, I would say if you're 23 and used to winning, at some point things will slow down, and then you're going to get tested because you grow, you get used to a certain
Used to
success
winning, yeah.
rate. And if that slows down, it's difficult. In general, it would be difficult for any athlete to uphold the same work ethic.
What kind of work ethic does he have? Like, what percentage would you say is just natural ability versus how much time is Josh putting in on the table day in and
Well,
day out?
listen, any tier one pool player is maniacal.
I love that word.
He plays a lot, practices a lot, also takes time away from the game, but not a lot. He's very much in it.
We got a lot of players. Go ahead, Mike.
No, he might not be a Filipino, but he's close. Before we get to the other players, there's one thing that I want to ask, and someone brought this up too, but I was going to ask it before. This year, as far as coaching goes, you won't have a number two. You won't have Carl at your side. How does that change your, approach? How does it change your workload? Is it going to make things more difficult for you during Mosconi Cup?
Oh yeah, always. Yeah, he was. We work good together, and Carl is smart. He's keen. He's socially, he's funny, but he's also socially keen. Like he'll pick up on things happening below the surface. So it's just good to have someone that's sharp, to working together. So that's going to be a little bit harder, sure. Yeah, can't do nothing about it.
Yeah, it is what it is.
I'm gonna have a vice captain probably coming from the team. I'll miss Carl, but he's not. Things are workable without him.
Yeah,
But
sure.
it was nice having him in my corner.
Yeah.
There were a few players that you brought up when we got a list of Europeans to go and talk about, but you did mention Earl Strickland, and I want to just ask you point blank, if you are the Team USA coach, would you bring back Earl after everything that happened last year?
Well, I don't think what happened last year was really his fault.
Right.
What about what happened
it's-
last week?
Yeah, true. Yeah, so that would be a reason, if you're like 50-50, not sure to make that call. If that happens, what happened at the tournament, then no. But that's what I said last year. It's like alchemy. If you bring in Earl, that's not chemistry, but alchemy. You're mixing substances, and you don't know what could happen. You know that there's a possibility
On a number of different levels there.
Yeah, but you could. The one thing is he's not afraid to shoot. And that's a thing that would maybe nice would be nice to have in your team. Someone that hits the back of the pockets.
Yeah.
In the practice room and out there. But If I would make that call, I don't think so, actually.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate your honesty. We got another player on deck for you, guy number two, but who has been number one on a lot of different tournaments this year. He just won the European Open, Albin Ocean. Everyone, expects him to go and make the team, especially just in his position alone. What are your thoughts on where Albin's at right now, Alex?
Where is he? Well, he's still. I think he's 31. He's still he's still young. That's actually really young, but he's
Yeah.
also already very much of a senior and a veteran player. So
Absolutely.
even not being in top form, he would be very valuable to a Mosconi Cup team, be in it or um, and winning the European Open recently in Fulda has put him on the map a little stronger because he looked like slowing down a little bit, but also the way in which he won the tournament. He wasn't firing on all cylinders, but he's just a very all round player, and his mental game has grown to be like more robust over the years. Um, so sometimes he can look a little negative at the table, but don't let that fool you. He has a very strong mental game already 4, 5, 6 years ago, but now that's even stronger. And before I spoke about pool players being maniacal and always in the game, him not so much. So he has chosen to skip some smaller tournaments this year, take time off of the game. He loves his outdoor holidays, hiking, climbing. Um, yeah, and then just when some people maybe started to think that he was making the wrong choices, skipping smaller tournaments, skipping on Euro tours, then he showed up in Fulda, won that European Open. So I think he won that one right in time. Was a good sign, a good showing. He's very much a tier one player. Um, he doesn't have as high a gear as Josh Filler. He plays a different type of pool, but actually for me, he's very good for high pressure pool, short races, matchroom arena, a
He's
good
clutch.
shot selection, good defense, good kicking game. Yes, yes, because he has all those facets in his game and very good speed.
So he's a veteran and he's seasoned. And when you see him kind of interacting with the team, it's hard to tell kind of what role he plays with other players, like in past years. How are those interactions with Albin? Does he try to take a leadership role, but just a little quieter than maybe like a Jason or someone, or does he kind of stay on the outskirts and just quietly encourage people?
Well, within the matchroom context, within the Mosconi Cup context, everyone encourages other people. You know, yeah, I wouldn't say he is an outspoken leader like maybe Shaw has grown to be last couple of years. He's more someone that leads by example, by just and that's sometimes the challenge for Albin, that he's torn between being there for other people and focusing on himself. So I don't think we've seen. Now I'm sure we haven't seen the best of Albin in the past two Mosconi Cups.
That's
Um,
a pretty strong statement.
but then
For the
still,
American sake, I
even
hope
if
you're
he
wrong.
plays, what's that? What's that? Sorry,
No, I was saying for the American sake, I hope you're
what's
wrong,
that,
Alex,
Mike?
because that's a pretty strong statement saying that we haven't seen the best of Albin Ocean. I mean,
Well, in the past 2 years, like in the Mosconi Cup.
Yeah. Yeah.
he's
Little,
he's
little
always
under.
solid,
Yeah.
and he's a good worker. So he's just going to buckle up and try and do what it takes in a certain match because he has that mental strength. But if we look at the stats, balls missed, resaves, and all that, no, he was better before. Like 2018, he played real
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Fantastic.
And the years before, he won MVP before. Yeah.
So let me ask you this regarding Albin, and I know you were watching the European Championship, and I don't know if you had the same reaction I had for you, but to a certain extent, you had to breathe a huge sigh of relief when he came back and beat Mario He. Was that in your mind at all? I mean, if Mario wins that and either wins the final or doesn't, all of a sudden there's a chance that you could have two first timers get points spots, which would leave you two wild cards for Jason, Albin, and Federer. Did that ever cross your mind? Did you think about that during that match at all?
No, not at all. Actually, not at all. If I have to make it, it's the same. I'm thinking of a shot clock. Many players, when I played, I knew just as other players that playing a little quicker would help me. Would take out that overthinking and play with a little more confidence and rhythm. But still, you don't. It's just the pressure of the game. You don't, and you take your time, even knowing that playing a little quicker would help me. It's the same. So in regard to team picks, Mosconi Cup picks, and the ranking and all that, if I have a choice, I'm gonna value experience and seniority and people who have been there, because you have to. It's worth so much. But if the format and the results force me into using Mario He and maybe Sanchez Ruiz, I think it's great. I think it's great for the event, for everyone involved. More unpredictability. And sure, a difficult choice then with the wild cards, but I think overall it would be more fun for everyone, more interesting.
That's why you get paid the big bucks. Difficult choice.
Can win with any team.
Well, let's talk about Mario for a second, because I thought he looked very clutch up until the end of that match with Albin. I thought he looked very poised. His rhythm at the table was something to be admired. It didn't matter who was in front of him. I just thought he was knocking down rack after rack. And compared to most players, I thought he had a lot of success with the new break. But at the end of that match with Albin, he kind of seemed to fall apart, Alex, and the pressure seemed to really get to Mario. What are your thoughts on Mario, on how he's progressed over the year, and what his future is in the Mosconi Cup?
Well, Mario has won a lot. Like maybe not the absolute top tournaments. Of course, he was a World Cup of Pool winner together with Albin, and actually, the last time they won it, he was the better of the two.
It was.
And at that moment, I thought he was really about to kick on, like on the international level, and he didn't. Um, I think that's due to maybe professionalism, dedication, making the right choices, and not so much due to his game. I mean, his game is absolutely there. He's a phenomenal player, smart player. He's been around for so many years, and I would have absolutely no trouble lining him up in the five players for Team Europe. He has it all. And how someone develops in the game, you have your Albins and Josh Filler, you have the ultimate professionals who seem to make all the right choices. Mario, he goes about things differently. He doesn't live like a rock star, but the professional life and being 100% committed to the game and doing it's difficult to do everything right. And it's not said that one should peak at 30. I think Efren started winning big time after he was 35 years. He was around before, but the big wins came later in his career.
Yeah, agreed.
What you got, Mike? What you got, Joey?
No, so this is a little off topic, but I just have to ask this question because I'm listening to Alex talk and your knowledge of pool, and obviously you're a great player yourself. And what happened last year to Team USA with Jeremy, how would you feel if that ended up happening to you guys and you had to grab your cue and jump in the ring?
Great question.
Well, I would love to be called upon and then perform like Jeremy did, but you don't know beforehand. It's of course it's something I daydream about. Um, yeah, but you never know. It's a lot of heat. I think it was very inspiring to see Jeremy step up and perform the way he did. Um, many people would have liked to see him win that match against David.
Yeah,
Was
of
he going to
course.
make that 6 ball? Was it the
And
6 ball? Was he going to make that?
and hold it
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
Was he going to slow roll, spin it, and hold it?
Yeah, good question. We'll never know.
Yeah, we'll never know.
Hey, Mike and I had him out in Vegas, and we had a table right in front of us, and we almost had him agree to set it up and shoot it.
Oh, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I mean, you'll never be able to recreate that moment, but we're gonna
Yeah.
get the shot set up at least at some
But
point.
it was just the intensity
Oh,
in the venue at that time during that match. It was one of the best couple of wrecks of 9-ball that I've ever seen.
yeah, that last rack was
beautiful.
unbelievable tension on every shot and every safe, and it would have been fun to see him get out of that rack.
Yeah.
Well, it'll live down in Mosconi infamy, and hopefully, hopefully we get to see Jeremy at least take a swing at it one of these days. That was a great question, Joey. Let's circle back to the next player on deck. We got Ruiz, who started off the year winning Derby City. He's been he's been consistent over the last few years, but it seems like this year has really been his breakthrough. He's in a really good spot to make it off of points. Granted, the U.S. Open still got a lot to go and factor in, but he's in a really good position to make the team this year, Alex. And what are your expectations of Ruiz?
If he were to be on the team,
Right.
well, he's going to perform. He's been absolutely killing it. Like it's great to see a player who's been around, who was like tier 2 in Europe, just behind the top guys. At some point, just making it click, and not making it click a little bit, but making it click where he's gone up like 2-3 levels. And that could be a big inspiration to many players. Like success can be just around the corner. Make on average one safety mistake less, staying down on the shot better, because that's something that was haunting Sanchez in the past. He was very jumpy, very edgy at the table, and then the wins gave him more confidence. The confidence keeps him calmer when he's under the gun. Keeps him calmer, makes better decisions, and it's just been one snowball effect. It's very impressive. Like a year and a half, 2 years ago, every time I watched him play, I thought, yeah, great, but not there yet. But then the past year, if he's playing, balls going clean, he plays good saves, plays good resaves. He's not that rhythm player that he maybe was labeled a year and a half ago. He's just there. He's tier 1, and he would do absolutely great in Mosconi Cup, I'm sure.
He does play with a nice tempo, though, even this year as he's been having success. Like, he's a fun player to watch. A lot of times you get drawn into matches and somebody's walking around the table 5 times. You don't get that with him. He's pretty plays with a nice tempo. Do you consider that with your choices? Do you consider the fact of the shot clock and the pressure situation? And does that come into play, like the pace of play of players?
A little bit. I don't care if someone is easy on the eye, but it's a fact that a player that needs a little more time to decide and get down and execute, on average, even if it's 4 or 5 seconds slower than someone else, that's gonna put a little extra pressure on this player in a Mosconi Cup setting. Even though maybe the shot clock is the same as in other matchroom events, the short races, the pressure, the heat, the intensity of the Mosconi Cup just makes it so that the shot clock comes into play more. So is it a consideration? Yeah, a little bit.
What you got, Mike?
No, I think that was a good description. I mean, I'm trying to think of other players who that would affect. I think when you think of some of those slower players like Akachi or even a
Um,
Kazakis, has it
yeah, well,
affected them in the past?
oh, I think so, and I'll use this medium, this moment right now to address Ekland because we've done a lot of work on shot clock, and and then you make agreements like in so and so situation. We do, you try and help the player, um, and he could work on that a little bit more because I think 4 times in the last Mosconi Cup or the one 2 years ago. 4 times he was about to pull the trigger when the beep started, and it sharked him. It sharked him on 2. So 50%. Where, for example, Albin is very good with the shot clock, and when he's about to pull the trigger, he'll wait for it to start, for the beep to start,
Right.
and then start his final motions, and then on 2 or 3 beeps, then he'll shoot. So he never gets sharked. If he's aware that it's about to start, he'll wait for it.
Yeah.
What would you go and weigh as far as some of these veterans that we got on screen, like Niels and David, and like for example, me and Mike have talked about David in the past, just in regards to Ruiz having someone that you're comfortable with, and obviously him and David got a lot of chemistry together. Would that be someone you'd go and consider just for the sake of making a rookie like Francisco, be more comfortable out there on that stage?
So I've there's a short list that I have in mind, people that are likely to qualify, or people that could qualify, or people that I would consider as a wild card. For me, David is on that list for the reason that you just mentioned. He's as a brother to Sanchez,
Yeah.
and a mentor, but also for the way that David, okay, he plays the game. He's
Right.
really, he's a high pressure player. I like his moving game, his kicking, his safeties, his shot selection. He can play quick, so he's not going to get caught out by the shot clock a whole lot. And what else? And he plays with a lot of heart. So also last year, for example, he was there and maybe could have been on more Mosconi Cup teams in the past. But when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and that saying goes very much for Al-Qaeda for me. Because also behind the scenes, like in the practice room, as things were heating up, day 2, day 3, he got fired up, and we got to see more of the real David.
It's great insight. What you got, Joey? Mike?
Well, I want to go back to the shot clock for a second, because when we were talking about Kachi and 2 out of 4 times getting sharked by the shot clock, when I first started watching pool and hearing the shot clock, I mean, it sharked me at home from being able to watch it. It was so loud, it seemed. Is there a better system for this? Could we come up with something better? Do you find it to be very loud for the players? I think
tap
about
them on the shoulder, maybe.
well, I think
Yeah.
about in soccer,
Can you hurry up some?
the referees have a
Excuse me.
watch, and if the ball
Excuse
goes
me.
over the goal line, the watch vibrates, right? Or something that might be a little less distracting.
We get
I'm
the
just
table to
curious about
shake.
that, because when you talked about Kachi getting sharked twice in a Mosconi Cup match, that could be the difference of winning and losing if it happens to you one time.
Yeah, but I just said what I think is the answer. The way to go is to learn and use it like Albin does or other players.
Yeah.
If you know it's coming, you hold, you wait 2 seconds, 3 seconds, then it starts, final movements, and then you pull the trigger. And I think it's a predictable distraction. So that is different from some rowdy fans yelling at a player's final backswing. That's maybe not something we want, but predictable distraction, the noise, and that you felt the heat just watching it happen and unfold. I think it's nice. I think it's good. I like it.
maybe an ankle bracelet.
Yeah.
One of the guys I want to bring up, and I love him to death, but you know that when you're on social media, European fans get a little bit nervous when you mention his name, is Alex Kazakis. And he and Mario are the closest of anybody to being able to actually make the points list with a big run at the U.S. Open, where they could get on there with like a second place finish. I think everybody else would have to win the U.S. Open to get on by points. Solid player. What do you think when you see Alex, when you think about him in Mosconi Cup, based on history, based on your knowledge of him, based on the way he plays?
Well, if he were to make it, he's most likely not going to be a wild card pick.
Right.
If he's not going through the rankings, but if he gets enough points, he's more than welcome, and I have full belief in him. I think there are still some things, that could do with some attention, and we've spoken about that. He knows how I feel, but like you said, he's a well-rounded player, and he's not tier one for me, even though he, for example, won the World Tour Masters, won the many tournaments, European Championships, Euro Tours, Kremlin Open, but he's not a tier one player. But he would fit just fine in our team. Yeah. So what's the question? No, I was.
No, you did just fine.
Well, no, yeah, okay. So I'll address him here. In the past, I've contacted him, even though it was very premature, just to do some work and to see how coachable he was. And I think, being from Greece, maybe he has missed out on that. He has never really worked with the coach. So he's good to go for the Mosconi Cup, 100% convinced. And if we were to have like a more of a long-term working relationship, I would love to help him sharpen up a couple of departments in his game.
Makes sense.
We talked about the veterans, but there's a lot of young Europeans that are coming up in the rearview mirror, and I mean a bunch. But there's a few that stand out for me, and guys who are just looking like the next Albins, the next Jasons of the world, in Victor, Oliver, and Sanjin. I want to start with Victor. For me, he's been a top, for my money, I think he's been a top tier 9-ball player over the last 12 months. We've obviously seen his successes at the Euro Tour. What are your thoughts on these 3 young players and what their future looks like?
First of all, I would like to hear you say their last names.
No. We're not.
First name.
Negative.
So Zielinski, Zolnocki, and Peglivanovic. Well, Zielinski, he was like playing really good 10 months ago, I think it is. Really good. He looks very hyper when he plays. Yeah, very powerful, very quick. Plays with a high pace, big shots, but it fools people because there's a lot of brain behind it. And when I spoke about filler earlier on the show, I think the same goes for Zielinski. He's now in the process of broadening his game and his approach and how he sees matches, how he wants to play at the table. Actually, I'm seeing him next week. He's coming to the Netherlands. We're going to work again. I've worked with him about a year ago, and I've seen how hungry this young guy is for knowledge. So, and actually, I had him profiled wrongly. So, because of his demeanor at the table and how he plays and how he strikes the ball, I didn't think there was this much reasoning behind it. But he's hungry for knowledge, and he's still very young. So we don't know where he's going to be in 3 years from now, but it could go real fast with him.
Yeah.
Joey, Mike, what do you guys got?
Well, I was impressed with him. We met him out in Las Vegas. He's one of those guys that if you it's so hard to tell with pool players. you can't look at them and tell if they're a good player until you see them play. And so I remember seeing him and thinking I'd probably play that guy, and he'd torture me, of course. And then seeing him play, and for the first time I saw him play, I said I could probably beat that guy. And then I watched him just run out from everywhere. He's got an unorthodox style.
Yes.
And he kind of is sneaky good, I think, where you don't realize just how good he is and what his ceiling is. Can he separate himself, you think, from the rest of the Polish contingent? Because there's a ton of great players in Poland.
Yeah, so it's difficult to rise to the top, but he's in the process. He's in the process. At that time a year ago, I had Jushin and Fortunsky and Zielinski and Shevchek. They came to The Hague. It's very difficult when you're an accomplished or more than when you're a champion player on the European level. It's get to the next level and beyond. That's very difficult, and it's not guaranteed. It's very difficult to know what the right mindset is that works for you, and to know where to get your knowledge. If a player could work on his game, tweak a couple of things, and actually flunk the ball, like lose what made his game so powerful. Can he be the one to rise on top of all the other Polish? Well, he's doing it. He was doing it 10 months ago. He slowed down a little bit. I think him and Shevchek, obviously, winning the World 10 ball title. Who else? Fortunsky, a left-hander, very good player. He seems close to make that next step. He has the game, but at top level, if you see a player like Fortunsky compete in all those matchroom events, he always looks good. He always looks real close to entering the winner's circle. But then there's always that one little mistake. 6-6, 7-7.
Yeah.
If you were only allowed to pick Polish players, could you beat the USA?
Well, could, yeah. Who would be the favorite? It would be competitive for sure. Yeah. Listen, who do you have? You have Zielinski, Shevchek, Fortunsky. That's 3.
Jushin.
Snigotsky. I don't know if he's top 5. You have Kaplan. There's many good players, and it's very early in the development of Polish pool. So we're just starting to see how many are out there. But imagine in 20 years from now, when those top guys from now will be more veteran players, and there will be 1 or 2 generations behind them. I mean, Poland is the Philippines. The Philippines of the future.
Wow.
That's a pretty strong statement.
Yeah, it is.
Just by numbers. Wow. Just by sheer numbers that they have. And the level of play.
They got better food.
What are your thoughts on what are your thoughts on Sanjin? He was in a European 9-ball final and ended up winning the European 10-ball in the finals again of the World Games against Josh. What are your thoughts on Sanjin and how he's been developing over the last, let's say, 18 months?
Well, Sanjin, very respected player, wins his tournaments, always looks like he's in the right place if he's invited to big tournaments, TV arena. Very well-conditioned player. But it's not a surprising development. And I don't want to take anything away from him, but he has just kept on progressing a little bit every year. Like 5 years ago, he looked like a well-conditioned young player with aspirations, making his way to the professional echelons. And every year he's been progressing a little more. When he dogged that winning position against Josh Filler, me, maybe other people as well, thought, okay, that's going to be a hitch in his career path. but
Definitely.
it hasn't proved to be so. It's actually surprising how progressive it has been. Where with other
Yeah.
players, you'll see a slowing down and an acceleration, and it's things happen. With him, it's just very progressive. So interesting to see if he can keep on going, just get himself to the next level. Actually, it reminds me a little bit of Niels Vijgen.
I,
Niels
I
Vijgen, the Dutch.
yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
yeah, he a player, very professional, strong work ethic, who just kept on progressing. Niels never had like, well, he had this surprising runner-up finish in Tokyo, I think 2001 against Efren, but there were bleeps on the radar. But in general, it was just steady progress,
Steady.
year by
Yeah.
year, year by year, not slowing down.
I'm like you. I thought that 9 ball miss against Josh to go and win the European 9 ball championships was going to go and maybe show a crack in his mental game, but he showed how resilient he was, winning the 10 ball championship and then following up with this World Games final. I think he's got a bright future. But there's a couple of other guys who want to go and transition into, one of them being last year's MVP, Eagle Eye Jason Shaw. What do you got, Alex?
Well, you start. What do you think?
I
He
think
plays pretty good.
I
Yeah,
think
he's,
Jason's made for the Mosconi Cup stage, in my opinion. I think he comes very clutch. Now, has he had the year that maybe others would go and hope? Because he's not there threatening when it comes to points. So if he's going to go and make the team, he's going to go and make it based off of your wild card pick. I know he just had a win out in Turning Stone, but it was a very soft field. I just think some players are built for that kind of stage, that go and thrive, that can handle that pressure. And I think if you were going to go and search for that player, Jason would be the picture that you go and watch.
he just showed it again at the World Team Championships. He was
Yeah,
he was on fire at the. He loved. He gets that focus and that aggressive.
he
I
hits
want
another
to take
level.
this guy. He said the day before the final, he said, I want to play Chang. I want to drill him, and he did. And he gets into those situations where you get that me against him. It's not a whole tournament long process. And so I think the Mosconi Cup is really well suited to him. Not that he can't win any, 256 player field that he wants to win either, but he really does seem to fit the mold for Mosconi Cup. And I think he's gotten a lot better since he overamped in 2018 and it cost them. And I think he learned from that and has gotten the last couple of years when he's won the MVP, he's just gotten better and better.
He kind of reminds
Well
me
said,
of a
guys.
UFC fighter.
What's
Sorry,
that?
Alex. I,
No,
I
well said, well spoken.
I was just going to comment and then I'll turn it over to Alex, but he kind of reminds me of a UFC fighter. Like the way he handles the press conference. I think he likes to look at his opponents as his mortal enemies. And regardless of, you'll see him and Shane at tournaments talking and chatting it up. And Jason's the nicest guy if you talk to him. But in the press conference, I remember from, I think it was two years ago, where he just like started attacking. I'm really curious to get your thoughts on that, Alex. What was your feelings when he had those comments that he made about Shane, and he kind of like drummed up all of this tension before the event? Did you think that was a positive or a negative?
Well, when it was happening, I was thinking to myself, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, easy, easy."
Pump the brakes, Scooter.
Yeah, because it's just that to underline that not many people can take that much heat. So when he was saying the things he said, or just the way he presents himself, or the way that he stirs things up, it makes me feel heat, and I'm thinking, oh, that's maybe a little too much. Let's take it easy, guys. But that's how he rolls. And I said earlier, a man's strength is his weakness at other times. So maybe in the past, the looking for all that heat and intensity was a downfall. It hurt his concentration. And then with time and many talks, he has learned to fine tune it, but still, it's very much in his system.
Yeah.
He likes it, and he likes his UFC. So because of that, he emulates that, but he also likes UFC because that is how he is wired. So I call him my battle ram because when we walk in or down the stairs in the venue, Mosconi Cup, all those fans, you have goosebumps and your heart rate goes up even if you don't have to play. But he can walk first and he'll be broad-shouldered, belly out, he's ready to go. He can handle all that heat even if he needs to play right after. So that would be a reason to pick him as a wild card because he's very, very good for the Mosconi Cup for Team Europe. He's also, apart from that, the ability to handle the heat and to give heat. It's also, he's a great player, but he's also developed as a leader.
That's what I was going to
Knowing
ask.
how to talk, when to talk, what to say, when not to talk. Which is very important, That's going to cement his position in the team for the next decennium. Not saying he's going to be in the team every year, but because of his developed leadership skills, he's always going to be in the mix.
Yeah, of course.
He can talk the talk and he can walk the walk on that stage. The guy just delivers when it's Mosconi Cup time. He just does. I don't care what kind of year that maybe he had or he hasn't had. Jason Shaw is always going to be in contention just because of, like what Alex said, what he brings to the table from a number of different avenues. I expect him there this December, and I'm sure a lot of European and American fans do as well. Let's transition to the guy of the year, guy atop the AZ Billiards money list, the guy who is going to be available for you despite not being able to play in any Matchroom event majors, only up until the U.S. Open this year. You talked about him and what kind of machine he is. What are your thoughts on Federer, Alex?
Well, I'm happy he's eligible. I'm happy we all get to see him play in the U.S. Open. Yeah, devil's advocate could say he's been winning many bar box tournaments, bar table tournaments, and a lot of one pocket. But matter of the fact is he's top of the money list. He's as young as Filler. It's absurd to see how he has skyrocketed in the past 3 years. And then we've spoken on the show, we've spoken about stagnating progress with players or players slowly progressing. It's sickening to realize how he got himself to the top of the food chain and then find another gear in his development as a player.
Yeah.
It's what is it? It's Archer. I think the last one. Well,
tell us how you really feel.
Archer.
Really feel, he would be, if he were to make the team, it would be a wildcard pick. He's on the short list, but I'm not making any promises to anyone out here. But apart from how much he has won and all that, it's been USA based. So if we're thinking about picking players for one team, you're also taking into the equation the fear factor that a player would bring.
He brings it. That kid brings it.
He brings it. So Dennis Orcollo, he hasn't been able to play in the US. And then some Orcollo fans were saying, yeah, the sheriff has left town. Or the marshal. Federer's the new sheriff in town.
He is.
In the US.
Will his performance at the U.S. Open have any impact on whether you pick him or not? I mean, if he does poorly, will it affect him negatively? Will his performance really impact your decision much?
Well, it depends. It depends who's going through 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, right.
I will have to measure that. Maybe, if a player, one of the most surprising players of the past 2 seasons has been Solnoki.
Right.
Out of nowhere. He's still in the mix. So anything can happen in the US Open. who won it in the past? It's a different tournament nowadays, but
Yeah.
Kennedy won it. Jimmy Reed won it.
Yeah, Reed Pierce won it.
Reed Pierce, that's the one. Yeah. So anything can happen. So I'll take the U.S. Open into equation. How Federer plays, or how he doesn't play, or how someone else plays. Jason Shaw, a wild card pick. Federer as a wild card pick. Maybe O'Kady, wild card pick. Maybe Albin or Sanchez if they wouldn't qualify through the rankings, which is unlikely.
Yeah,
one of them will. I'm just hoping my choice is going to be as easy as possible after the US Open.
Alex, are you the kind of guy?
Interesting.
Are you the kind of guy that you're just gonna like sit there and lose sleep night after night, kind of considering this, or are you going to be pretty deliberate about it and say, you know what, it's time to make a choice. I'm grabbing these guys, and that's that.
Well, somewhere in between, because I'm thinking now, reflecting, blah blah blah. But it's easy. It's pretty lighthearted because I know I don't have to make the call now. And then after the U.S. Open, I'm dying to start working with the 5 players, maybe like a backup player as well. So I would need to make a choice quick. I would take a couple of days, call with people. What I do sometimes, I'll talk with friends, and I'm not so much, looking to hear their opinion because it's probably going to be something that I already know, but just thinking out loud.
I throw out a hypothetical. Let's say Albin and Francisco, hold their spots.
Yeah.
As the other 2 picks. And you've got 2 wild cards, and you've got Jason and Federer sitting there. Someone like Solnacki, Victor, Alex, Mario finish top 3, top 4. Do they seriously come into the mix, or is it too little too late?
No, I don't think, and I think you would agree, I couldn't throw in one of them and leave the MVP of last year and the year before out, or leave Federer Gorst out.
Okay.
I mean,
I love the honesty.
There's actual form, there is experience in the Mosconi Cup, there's fear factor, there's experience in the matchroom arena, safety game, but experience out there at the Mosconi Cup is also very important, of course.
So one of these guys has to win the U.S. Open to get onto the points list, and that would do.
Well, I haven't done the calculations, but I think
the way I look at it, yeah. Well, Mario and Alex, and this all depends on how. I mean, if Albin and Francisco do well, then it doesn't matter what these other players do,
right?
But if they get into some serious money, but if they don't do as well, Mario and Kazakis could finish second or first and get a point spot. After that, Kachi, Jason, Solnacki, Victor, they would all pretty much have to win the tournament to lock up a point spot. And anybody past, Niels really doesn't have a shot. That's the way I figured it. Does that sound about right?
Sound about right. Someone could surprise us. Whoever would do so, hey, welcome on the team. Good job. Great work with you. It's any 5 players that'll be on the list. We're going to make a team, and we're going to prepare, and we're going to try and win it. And whoever makes it on a team, we would be favorites. But I'm trying not to get distracted by that. Let people talk and let us prepare. But Federer and Shaw, they're the first names that come to mind as wildcard picks.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned O'Kady in this context. They're the first that come to mind. Yeah.
If Kachi doesn't win the World 10 ball, is Federer on the team last year?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, listen, I think you've been fantastic this whole hour. You've been a lot more honest than what I thought you were going to be, Alex, and I mean that as respectfully as possible, because I know it can come across a little bit the other way. But I want to get you out of here on this, because I know from being out at the Derby and from what I heard about you being out there at Buffalo's that you're a bit of a one pocket connoisseur, and there's a big match that's been rumbling that's going to be happening right after the Mosconi Cup, and I want to get your insight and thoughts on Shane versus Tony T-Rex Chohan.
Well, most interesting is how Shane now has refound his passion for one pocket.
I don't know if
I
that's
read
exactly
Yeah,
accurate.
I don't think he's found passion for it. I think it's all about it's all a money
Yeah.
grab.
It's passion for money. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't think I don't think he likes one pocket, but
well, then how do you manage performing when you're doing something you don't like, or is it just the money? Well, he doesn't need the money. Well, everyone needs money.
True.
I don't know. It would be very interesting to hear from him how exactly he got to the point where he's getting back in the mix, playing one pocket.
yeah.
And even game. For me, would be an even game. Shane doesn't play so. He doesn't play as creative, dynamic, explosive type of pinball shots as does T-Rex, but he banks real good. He's a great shot maker, and so why wouldn't he? And he's good under pressure. They're playing on tight equipment, I think.
Yes.
I think like 4.25. I think
4.25. Yeah.
4.25.
Yeah, that's not really tight.
Yeah.
I think that would favor Shane actually.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I think Tony wanted 4 1/8 or 4.
Yeah. Okay, I'll say Shane wins by 3.
Wow.
Well, I like it. I think a lot of one pocket fans are excited for this one. Shane's got a lot of firepower, and we all know Tony's, the ultimate mover. But it's going to be a great match, and actually, I think it sounds like it's going to be right after the Mosconi Cup out there in Vegas, as a matter of fact. So hopefully, you get to hang out for a couple more days and get to go sweat it. Listen, we appreciate you coming on. I know it was a bit of a struggle finally get you on the show after all the traveling, but we appreciate you working with us. And more importantly, just for your honesty, man, like I mentioned a minute ago, because it's not an easy spot to be in that you're in, but you do it well and professionally.
All right, thanks. My pleasure.
What do you got, Mike, Joey?
No, I just want to thank you, Alex. Yeah, it was great. You might have to explain yourself on a few of those comments. You might get some text messages, but that's what we love about you. You just said what you thought, and we appreciate your contribution. So thanks for being on the show.
Alex can take the heat and he can give the heat, so don't worry about it.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Alex. Take care.